Where does the dust come from? Let's say there's dust accumulating on a counter. Does it come from the counter or does it come from the air? Those are the two places it could come from.
We're seeing study after study come out. People don't realize the impact that air is having on them.
So we like to focus on what cleans the air the best more than these cute one-liners with percentages and microns and stats that are really just kind of techniques to pretend you're different. If you think back to childhood, water was just water. No one even thought about filtering water. And then you think back and you're like, that hose water did kind of taste a little bit plasticky.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, once you start drinking filtered water and you go get tap water at a restaurant, you're like, this tastes like chemicals. So you elevated your taste buds and your water consciousness, your water awareness. So now that you've calibrated your taste buds, you can avoid bad water just by taste. It tastes plasticky. It tastes chlorinated. So your taste buds are able to help your health by making good decisions. And that same amount of awareness entirely exists with air. People just need to kind of pay attention, and then you can start making good decisions. You know, when you're at a mall, at a hotel, at someone's house, when you're cooking, when you're cleaning, there's a lot of little decisions that you can make to really improve it. So I'm happy to share some of that stuff with people too.
Yeah. I want to talk about all of it because people don't realize the impact that air is having on them. And we're seeing study after study come out in even more recent years. I mean, we've always known this, right? Like take your shoes off before you come into the house. And there's little things we can do like that. But the studies coming out showing the rates of heart disease and the rates of all different kinds of conditions. And I really believe that metabolic health is significantly impacted by air quality. Over time, those who live in air polluted cities and air polluted areas really do get impacted negatively, specifically the cardiovascular system. I live out in the country and it's windy out here. I'm kind of in a wind tunnel coming off the Cascades. And when we have the windows open, we don't have forced air. My husband is so concerned about air quality that he didn't even put any kind of forced air or heat through our house. We have the floors warm up. It's like water. He's crazy. He's like a mad scientist. So you guys would get along.
Radiant in-floor heating.
Yes. So he did not want air blowing through the house. But when we open the windows off of these fields, my big concern is there's a lot of glyphosate and there's a lot of spray on these fields.
That's the real problem.
Yeah. And it's blowing all through our house the dust layer in our house is intense. So you said something in some of the literature I looked at that a house should not get dusty. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, my house gets almost no dust. And that's because if you think about it, cleaning, where does the dust come from? Let's say there's dust accumulating on a counter. Does it come from the counter or does it come from the air? Those are the two places it could come from. So dust is typically a symptom of poor indoor air. If you go outside, you won't see dust on the driveway, on the lawn, on the sidewalk. There's no dust outside. Dust is an indoor problem. There could be sand outside, but there's not going to be like household dust and dust mites. Dust happens when you have very poor ventilation. So that's, radiant in-floor heating is great, but if the air is not circulating and venting enough, then dust can accumulate. And then dust becomes a vessel for mold, for pollen, for allergens, for VOCs. So if you have when you're cleaning a home, you want to be cleaning the surface and you want to be cleaning the air. It's kind of an integrated approach. So by cleaning the air more, you can actually clean your surfaces less. Also, when you vacuum, if someone's not using a HEPA vacuum, all those particles that you are vacuuming go airborne. And then they just find themselves in your HVAC system. Well, you don't have one, back on your surfaces again. So outside, dust is not an issue because we have sun. So we have the most powerful UV light. We have wind. We have trees for purification. But in an indoor environment, we built these very tight little homes that are wrapped in plastic vapor barrier that don't breathe very good. So all of the outdoor pollutants come inside and get trapped inside. And all of the indoor pollutants from off-gassing, cooking, cleaning, pets, etc., stay inside. So you have the double whammy of the indoor air pollutants being trapped inside, the outdoor air pollutants coming inside, and then you've left out the UV via the sun and the trees and the wind. So we left nature's air filter outside and we trapped everything in a box. So that is typically why indoor air has that problem. And if someone has good ventilation and adequate air filtration, then you tend to find basically no dust accumulation, at least a lot less.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned HVAC. I really still to this day don't understand what HVAC means. And I don't know what HEPA stands for. So can you
Sure.
just give me the
I sure
the
can.
down
A
low?
couple, a couple acronyms. So HVAC is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So it's just a fancy way of saying your furnace, and your air conditioner.
Okay.
It's all the mechanical stuff. It's all the vents, the furnace, and basically for 99% of people, HVAC means it's your furnace and your air conditioner.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
Um,
And that's really that's what's pumping the air through the home and should be cleaning it, I'm guessing.
no,
No, okay.
no, most homes have a furnace and an air conditioner. They don't have any filtration. There's this
Ah,
little filter. It's called a furnace filter, but it's designed to filter big clumps of particles from getting in your furnace. That's why it's literally called a furnace filter. It's a lot of people think that the furnace filter, you change it every 3 months or every 6 months, it's going to clean your air. It will not. All it will do is if you don't change it regularly, it's going to get all the pores are going to be clogged up and your furnace is going to work less effectively. So it's not designed to be an air filtration system. You can put big air filters on your furnace or on your HVAC system. However, we actually spent the first couple of years trying to develop that, but it was just so ineffective because you want your furnace and air conditioner to only run when they need to, minimally, to be energy efficient. So when your furnace is not running, that filter is not cleaning and it's sitting in the middle of your house. So you're literally cleaning your basement or some hallway as much as you're cleaning your bedroom or your baby's bedroom. So you're not able to focus your cleaning efforts. So as much as I really, really wanted the whole home system to be a good solution, it was loud, it was ineffective, it was expensive. You can't take it with you when you leave. So it wasn't this, you could sell it through tens of thousands of HVAC dealers, furnace companies. So that's the direction that I really wanted to take things. And then I realized, damn, this is not the way to go. You really need a portable solution.
yeah,
And then
that makes
HEPA
sense.
means high efficiency particulate air. It's a blessing and a curse because everybody calls everything a HEPA these days, but it's not that important. All that HEPA literally means is it's a standard. It means at the particle size of 0.03 microns, it's filtering 99.97% of the air. It's a silly thing because everybody calls their filter a HEPA, but there's no standard of what it actually means for a test. So for example, if I hold up like a Kleenex or a tissue or a paper towel and I blow over so gently on it, technically it could be a HEPA because it just means that a piece of paper, if you blow the more airflow that passes through a filter, the worse it performs. So you would think that there'd be a standard that says, hey, when you're doing a test on your filter, you have to test it at the same speed. It'd be like imagine they told you about miles per gallon on your car when you were driving 1 mile an hour instead of a practical speed. That would not be a reasonable test. I'm sure if you were driving, just rolling with your brake down a hill, your car would probably have the best mileage of all time. So that's pretty much what's happening in the air industry. Uh, um, no one's testing their miles per gallon at a real speed. You should have to test it at 30 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour at like an actual speed that you would drive. Otherwise, or it's like how many foot does your car brake in if you were riding the brake? You would have the best brakes ever. But if you're going 100 miles an hour, your brake time wouldn't be very good. So unfortunately, that's why I like doing podcasts because not everything is just an Amazon filter or an Instagram picture. So some things are a little bit more nuanced to actually explain. Also, if you had a HEPA air filter, I'm drinking a cup of water. So if the HEPA air filter was the size of this cup, it could still filter over 99%. But because it's so small, it's not filtering very much air. So that 99% is per each pass. It's like if you try to heat a closet or a small bedroom with a space heater, it works great. But if you try to heat your big open living room with a space heater, it doesn't do anything. So if you have a very small filter, it could be a HEPA, but it could also be way too small to get the job done. So a lot of people are marketing on how much air it cleans per pass. But what matters way more is would you rather have 99% of $1 or 95% of $5? So often, actually having a less efficient filter is way better at cleaning the air. So we like to focus on what cleans the air the best, more than these cute one-liners with percentages and microns and stats that are really just kind of techniques to pretend you're different.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I get what you're saying. It's yeah, okay. I'm adding it up in my head. This is the stuff my husband geeks out on. We should we should have him interviewing you. I was like, you want to come down? There's other factors in the air too that you have mentioned to me offline. So there's PM 2.5, VOC. What are those? I don't know what that means either.
Yeah, PM 2.5 means particulate matter under 2.5 microns in size.
Okay.
So fancy way of saying little teeny tiny particles that are small enough to enter your lungs and enter your bloodstream.
Okay.
So if it's a PM 10 could be like hair particulate, larger particle sizes, maybe too small to see with the naked eye, but your body's able to filter those out. PM 2.5 and smaller is a particle that's small enough to actually cause a lot of harm. VOCs is volatile organic compounds, and this is a catch-all word for thousands of chemicals.
Right.
So a VOC could be benzene, toluene. It could also mean formaldehyde. So it's sort of a silly catch-all word because different filters filter different VOCs differently. There's different concentrations in your home. Not all VOCs are the same, but it's, we can't possibly remember all thousands of chemicals. So VOC and a filter that is effective at filtering some VOCs is pretty good at filtering most of them.
Okay.
So we kind of just, we broadly call things, when we talk about particulate or particles, we're talking about physical things: smoke, dust, pollen, mold, when you're cooking debris, pet dander. These are particles that the filter actually captures. It stops in its tracks. Whereas a carbon filter filters VOCs. Think about gas, odors. So these are gases that will not be caught by a filter. So they have to be absorbed by the carbon. That's why a good air purifier has two or three layers of filter, combining the HEPA portion, which is for the particles, and then the carbon portion, which is for the odors and gases.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, it's making sense now, because when I go to change filters on different air purifiers I've used, I didn't understand what all of them were or what they were for, but this makes a lot more sense now. Go back to the PM 2.5. What can you give me some examples of things that are that small? Would mold be in that category, or the mycotoxins? What?
Those are even smaller.
Okay.
So, PM 2.5 would definitely be created in a day-to-day life by cooking, by cleaning, by pollution, by wildfire smoke. When you look at air quality in a given city, they usually talk about PM 2.5 or AQI, which is the air quality index.
Yes.
And even that is mostly made up of PM 2.5.
Okay.
So if they're talking about the wildfire smoke outside, generally we're going to be talking in PM 2.5.
Okay.
And that's what the number on the Jasper says. There are particles that are smaller, like mold and mycotoxins, and that's a really, really big deal. And a lot of people, it's pretty heartbreaking, actually. My background was in restoring moldy homes. So, but it was it's heartbreaking nowadays. There's two terms that I really don't like. One's called the mold rush, and one is mold is gold. So there's a whole mold industry that is designed on basically making people think that their house is killing them. Which could be contributing. But when there's visible physical black mold in your home, you definitely want to call 3 restoration companies, 3 mold remediation companies, get quotes and get it removed safely. However, a lot of the times now, people do an air test for mold, which is a good test to do. They get their blood test, they get a mycotoxin test, they get panicked that there's invisible mold everywhere in their home, and they start ripping their house apart. It costs them tens or thousands or $100,000s of dollars that they may not even have. And then often they're renting an apartment or a house that's likely moldier than the house that they moved out of. Because mold is everywhere.
Yep.
Mold is like pollen. So there's mold outside, there's mold inside. I'm breathing in mold right now. It's more about what species is it? How much is it? How allergic to it are you? And the good thing is, that's why I got out of remediating people's homes, because you're you're up against the whole industry's predicated on fear and then convincing people that they need to start ripping apart their house. Now, if you have let's say you have bad water, and if you have a well or you have city water, unless you have spring water, your water is not going to be great. So you filter it. You don't have to rip up all your pipes. You just have to filter the water. You don't have to dig a new well. You don't have to trench some new line to the city. You just have to you can get a shower filter. You can get a faucet filter. You can get a whole home water filtration system. With air is much sneakier. It doesn't come in through a singular pipe. It comes in through the attics, the doors, the cracks, the vents. We need to breathe. And if the only way mold is making you sick, going back to how things get in your body, would be eating it, drinking it, absorption through your skin, or breathing it. So mold and pollen, these are breathing issues. And what ends up happening with people is their airborne level, there's mold in their home because their house doesn't breathe very good and they don't filter their air. Just the same way that if you drink tap water, there's chlorine in your water. So you filter the water.
Right.
And people have been, and then a lot of naturopaths and a lot of really great wellness practitioners, they're running, they have patients, they have staff, they have a business to run. And then all of a sudden, now all of a sudden they're getting thousands of requests about mold detox. So what do? They sign up for a mold course to get educated. A lot of these courses are 1 to 3 days, a little bit longer. And a lot of the times they're taught by the restoration industry, the mold guys. And there's various types of mold tests. Most of them are either designed to skew positive or skew negative. So when I was doing mold consulting, we would use several different tests. But the best test of all is usually a good nose. Yeah. Usually, if it smells moldy, it is moldy. And especially if someone's not using fragrances and Glade plugins and chemical cleaning agents to mask stuff, I call all that stuff air makeup. If you keep it neutral in your home, your sense of smell is you're going to be the best advocate for mold. And it's very sad because when we would remediate a home for mold, we seal the room, we put air filtration in that room, we put air filtration outside that room, we remove, we called it surgical removal, all fancy words. We would double bag the mold, we would cut out the drywall or the impacted material. Then we would wipe down all of the materials, the floor, the walls, the ceiling with an antimicrobial. And we remove the mold and we let the air purifiers run for 3 days. And then you'd go back to the house and you test the house again. Often companies turn off the air purifier right before they do the test. So of course there's no mold in the air. You've been running air filters. If anybody gets mold remediation done and then they get a clearance test done, do the clearance test a week after you turned off the air filters, and guaranteed you're going to have mold in your air again, because it's like the chlorine, it's like the bacteria. Filtering your air is the same as filtering your water. It's something you have to do continuously if you want clean air.
Yep. No, that totally makes sense. And I agree with you about the sniffer test, because especially once you've been mold sick, you're just heightened to it. So anywhere I walk into, I'm like, it smells like mold, I'm out. That's how I shop. When I was looking at houses, I was like, it's either moldy or it's not. And I can smell it immediately. And my husband would always look at me and be like, are you making this up? I'm like, no, you can't smell it. I'm sorry you can't smell it. But if I smell it, yeah. And also, I think that what you said is so true. Mold is everywhere. I live in Oregon. Like, mold is everywhere. Every building after a while is going to become moldy. And my whole approach with patients is, we need the filtration system, and also we need to be resilient, right? Like, so that's my whole shtick, is like, we have to be resilient to whatever may come our way, whether it be viruses or mold or whatnot. And mold's trying to compost us. And it's trying to compost our homes, and that's what it's doing. So ultimately, having airflow, if we had airflow going the past few years during this whole situation that's been going on, if everybody had just invested in good air filtration, it would have been a whole different game. But that was never the conversation, right? It was just other interventions that were the key. And I'm over here like, can we just get the air circulating and cleaned up? Whenever, good clinicians, because you walk into their clinic and they've got multiple air filtration systems going throughout the clinic and the lobby. And you're like, oh, or even I've been to event venues, I've been to concerts, I've been to different places where they're just literally giant air filtration, good systems lined up against the wall. And they spent the money on it and the investment. And you're like, oh, I'm going to be good in here. Like, I'm not nearly